All right, dropping the link in the chat right now. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here for our Connect and Access today. We are recording this session to ensure that those who wanted to attend but couldn't for whatever reason, we do send out this recording to them. So thank you for allowing us to record this. So we're thrilled to have you here with us today. This is really an opportunity to connect with partners within the statewide system of support and then be able to access their resources. This is a roundtable discussion. We're going to take about the first 25-ish minutes to really share who we are within the statewide system of support and the partners that we work with across the state, where we can come together, admitting someone in the waiting room here, and we're here to really collaborate and problem solve and share insights. So the remaining time after our projects present is time for you to ask questions about applying it within your context. So this month we are really coming together to foster meaningful conversations, provide valuable resources, and really strengthen our collaborative efforts to improve educational outcomes for all students. So today we are super excited to welcome our guests from the statewide system of support for an engaging discussion around academics and achievement. So on the next slide, you're going to see that you will have access to our slide deck, which I'm going to throw that link back in the chat for those that are just hopping on. And we are also going to be giving you access to what we call the SSOS Connect and Access Implementation Guide. This is going to be all of the resources that are shared today. We're going to be on the back end and linking them into that implementation guide. Also, there is a tab on this resource from the very first session that we held back in October around the problem of practice, where we were discussing school climate and positive behavior supports. We had California PBIS on the call, as well as supporting innovative practices. So you're going to have access to those resources as well. So I will quickly take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Lori Balsano Wright, and I serve as the coordinator on the Open Access Project, which is associated with the Placer County Office of Education and Placer County SELPA. Leah Padilla is also a coordinator on the project. Today, we are so excited to have Stephanie Coleman, coordinator from Sacramento County Office of Education. California Includes is her project that she will be sharing about. We have Vanessa Lopez, coordinator from Imperial County SELPA. Her project is Project MuSE. So thank you for being here, Vanessa. And then we are going to be hearing from our very own Emily Desjardins, our UDL AT content lead from Open Access. So they are here on the call, and as soon as I get out of their way, you're going to hear from them. So just briefly, we want to make sure that you have access to all of our resources today. Again, I will throw this in the chat for those that are just joining us, making sure that you have access. This is our promise here at Open Access. We do embody the principles of universal design for learning, and we do everything that in our power to make sure that this presentation and the related materials are as accessible as possible. So you can see some of our strategies that we are using today are seen here on the slide deck. So our topic today is on a critical question around how do we ensure that all students have access to rigorous instruction and support that lead to meaningful academic growth and achievement. So we'll be exploring this throughout this problem of practice throughout the day. As we think about this challenge, we often think about 4 common root causes that often emerge across schools and districts. So the first is around inconsistent, high quality instructional practices, which can then create uneven learning opportunities and experiences for our students. The second is limited equity and access to learning, where all of our students do not have access to accessible materials or supports or opportunities that they need in order to fully engage in the learning and instruction. The third is variable school and classroom environments. This can lead to mixed expectations and conditions that make it harder or more challenging for students to thrive academically. And then finally, a fourth possible potential common root cause, low student engagement, which reduces the likelihood that students will persist and take risks and really experience growth, meaningful growth over time. So maybe some of that resonated with you as like, yes, that is a root cause within our district. So keeping these in mind, consider which ones feel most familiar in your current context and one where your team might focus to strengthen access, participation, and instruction, rigorous instruction for every learner. So today, I am so excited to bring to you, next slide, please. Connect and Access is focusing on bridging our statewide projects into practice by showing how each of these initiatives that you see here on the slide support improved student outcomes in academics and overall achievement. Three key projects in this work include California Includes, Project MuSE, and Open Access. Just briefly, California Includes supports schools in implementing alternative achievement standards and developing meaningful alternative pathways for students. So Stephanie's going to share with us in just a minute more about that. Project MuSE enhances outcomes for multilingual students with exceptional needs. Vanessa is going to share about her project in just a minute. And then Open Access is built on that foundational belief that when students have access to high quality curriculum and instruction, all students can engage, participate, and learn in inclusive settings. And so we've got Emily here to share more about UDL, AT, and AAC, and just really promoting full access and belonging. And so together, these projects are here today to strengthen school-wide systems by combining our efforts. It's that collective efficacy to ensure access and engagement and participation for all students. So without further ado, I am going to hand it off to Stephanie to share about California Includes.
Thanks, Lori. I'm excited to see that problem of practice because it marries really nicely into a lot of the work that we do in California Includes. California Includes is a project that at the heart of our work is to expand understanding and awareness around the benefits of inclusive educational settings. And one of the pieces of that we have spent a lot of time over the last few years talking about is the alternative pathway to a high school diploma for students that have significant cognitive disabilities, or we often say extensive support needs, are students who are eligible for the CAW. In addition to that, as we've started having a lot more discussions and talking to LEAs and county offices, and a lot of the heart of this work lies in mindsets and beliefs and presumed competence. Because without all of those pieces, having students have opportunity to access rigorous educational environments and have teachers who provide them with high quality instruction, which was part of the problem of practice, we find that those things are tied very important. They're tied together in a very important way. And so part of our work is around helping people understand the power of inclusivity and belonging in any environment, that those things need to be present in order for students to truly thrive. And so our project is small. We have a very small but mighty team. And as we get requests, we typically are trying our best to keep up with those requests to provide training. We have webinars that we put on. We have lots of recordings around the alt pathway. If you haven't had the opportunity to hear me talk about it for the 500 times that I talked about it, I am always happy to talk some more about it. But I can also point you to a recording if that's helpful as well. And so I'm going to show you some of the resources that we have today, and this is part of the things that we've created to help forward this work. And so on the next slide, Emily, you're the best. On our next slide, you'll see some fact sheets, and maybe you've seen these before. They've been around since kind of the beginning of this work, and they are intended to be resources that y'all just take and use. Everything that California Includes puts out, we put out as a it's all yours, please take it and use it, including our training slide deck and all of our home base documents and resources like these. They're meant to be shared widely and used in ways that best meet your needs. And so we have an English and Spanish version of the family guide. And then the LEA guide is just more an educator speak. But to be honest, we feel very strongly that transparency should be something that's really important in our work. And so there's nothing that the family or the LEA guides say that don't complement each other. It's just the way that we choose to speak about these different components. In addition to that, on our next slide, we have some additional resources around in what ways can a student with a disability earn a diploma in California? There's a lot of confusion. There's work that I'm partnering with West Ed. They've done a lot of work around alt means to help us support students that don't meet the eligibility for the CAW, but still may need some more extensive support in order to be able to meet diploma requirements. And so part of that work in partnership with one of our other state projects, high quality IEPs, was to develop this resource to help us be able to create clarity around the ways that students can earn high school diplomas in California. And to start creatively thinking about in our own LEAs where there's local control and board policy, what are the things that need to be in place to ensure that every single student in the state of California has meaningful access to a high school diploma by way of standards aligned, rich and deep, high quality first instruction and instruction period. So this resource is also something you'll have access to, and I highly recommend it. It answers a lot of questions, and if you have more questions, you can always let us know, and it's a work in progress, so we can always update it. Our next slide shows our kind of ties into two things. So we have a community of practice that is hosted by Heather DeFede and I. Heather's from the high quality IEP team and has been working on everything related to the new IEP template and strength-based IEPs. And she and I host a monthly community of practice for it's really aimed at more administrators, but it doesn't really matter. We're happy for any educator to come that's looking for how to make this work or what does it look like or they need resources. And so we meet each month. Our next meeting is I believe the second Friday in February, but all that information is available on this Padlet along with all of the previous slides that we've talked about over the last year and a half. So you're welcome to attend that. So here's the information about the community practice that I just talked over, but you saw it and here it is. And then if you are at a systems level, the next couple slides are really just to get you some of these resources around our system plan and rubrics to help you think through the different components that need to be considered as you're putting a system in place for students to have access to the alt pathway. For a lot of people, there's different places where you're starting, and so we have some rubrics to help you guide the thinking around, ooh, what's the next thing we should be thinking about around grading or how we're communicating this out to all of our interest holders. And so those rubrics, if those seem interesting to you and that's something that stands out, please, please, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to have a Zoom meeting with you to kind of talk things through and thought partner with you on that. But these are really meant to help you think through the processes that are involved to truly make sure that the plan that you have is lasting, is meaningful, and truly gives students the highest access to high quality education. Not just we put a sticker on it and said it's the alt pathway and here's your diploma, but actually the heart of that work, which is ensuring students have high quality educations in every setting, in every school in California. And then finally, you can click through these because these are just talking about those things to consider. On this next slide, we have an upcoming training, or is it a six-part series that is being built off of some work that we did with the TIE Center at a University of Minnesota. And They're an amazing technical assistance center at the state level, and we worked with them to create a survey that went out to the state of California. We had over 800 people respond to it and tell us what were their thoughts around some key components of inclusive education. And from that, we kind of identified six of the top myths that exist around inclusion for students, and from that we have a myth busting document. And so we're going to be doing a six-part series starting the first Thursday in February, so just a couple weeks away. And we would love to have that explode and be like the biggest training where we've got 1 million people on it, because it really will give an opportunity for people to critically think about the things we believe and where those beliefs come from, and then the reality of what does the law say, what is actually best for all students, and in what ways can we support a shift in mindset, because that's one of the big components that came from that survey is how many mindsets are set against inclusion. And so we want to break down some of those myths and move forward. So we would love for you to share that flyer, share that resource out with people, and hopefully we will get some myths busted. So that's all for me. Thank you so much for letting me share. Is there anything else you need me to say, Lori? Was that enough?
That's perfect for right now. So then we'll let the other two projects speak, and then there will be time for questions and discussion. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thank
We'll
you.
hand it to Vanessa.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I know lunchtime is challenging sometimes because a bunch of things pop up, so it really means a lot to me and to us for you to be here. So my name is Vanessa Lopez, and I'm one of 5 members of Project MuSE out of Imperial County, where our focus is improving outcomes for multilingual students with exceptional needs. On the next slide, you will find a one-pager that I will not go through. You can read through it at some other time, but you'll be able to have some basic information about our project, and you'll find there linked some of our top hits, so to speak, related to resources. But some of them will be covering as we look at some of those problems of practice on the next slide. So we know that when we are serving dually identified students, there are some problems of practice that continuously pop up. And a lot of these are tied to exactly what Lori mentioned earlier on. So if we were to just call out some 4 broad categories, it's typically around over-identification in specific categories. So over-identifying English learner students for special education services, particularly in categories like specific learning disability or speech or language impairment. And usually this happens because there's some challenges in discerning whether a student's struggle is due to a language difference or a potential disability. We also see inadequate pre-referral systems that point to a lack of a robust MTSS and pre-referral intervention system that are not just culturally and linguistically responsive, but that are consistent. And sometimes we find that some of our referrals are made too soon without fully ruling out extrinsic factors. The next 2 categories are around the lack of integrated professional expertise, and that speaks to this continual conversation around silos, how we continue to have siloed departments, siloed collaborations that don't really take advantage of the expertise that exists on all sides, from general education to English learner specialists to special education experts, therefore not having a truly cohesive and integrated IEP in development and implementation that take into account a student's needs as a multilingual learner and their disability-related needs. And then we come back to the topic of instruction. Inaccessible core instruction for English learner students with disabilities sometimes point out the lack of meaningful access to core curriculum, which we know in California for all English learners, including those who are students with disabilities, including those with significant cognitive disabilities, is comprehensive ELD, which is both integrated ELD and designated ELD in the least restrictive environment. But to address that, we are going to take a look at some resources, some tools that we've developed to support our teams. So when we're looking at over-identification in specific categories, it's typically because we're not having these cohesive system-wide conversations that are centered around a truly multidisciplinary team. So looking at a resource such as this one pager, not a one pager, it's an infographic that puts together a systems improvement lens for equity and English for English learners and dually identified students, really breaks down the steps or the process in the system that we could be looking at as an MDT. So on the next slide, it breaks it down further, and it lets us know what this four-stage process could potentially look like, from guiding teams through identifying who our students are, to reviewing policy versus practice, examining our root causes, and then this iterative process of implementing and monitoring so that we can move forward in supporting dually identified students. So additionally, in support of this problem of practice, we also have two resources that we want to highlight on the very next slide. The first, which is all about language of assessment options for multilingual students. So when we're talking about issues related to pre-referral practices, when we're talking about over-identification, a lot of times we have to really travel in time and go back to that initial determination, or if we are actually working with that initial assessment process, being well aware of the language of assessment options that are available for multilingual learners. So we developed this resource to guide teams in having a discussion around what those options are, from keeping in mind the legal mandate, and then starting with that gold standard, which is a full bilingual assessment by a bilingual assessor, but knowing that oftentimes that is not feasible. So what is that second best option? What is that third best option? What is it that's available so that we can support teams? The other resource that we have highlighted for you here today is around culturally and linguistically appropriate special education eligibility assessment processes. And that is also linked on that previous slide with the initial document related to the assessment practices. Another problem of practice that you might be finding in your own teams, in your own sites, or within your own work are inadequate pre-referral systems. And this speaks to all things MTSS, that multi-tiered system of support, which is inclusive of academic, social, emotional, and behavioral. And just knowing what tier one is, what it isn't, what tier two is, what it isn't, and what tier three is and what it isn't. So these three infographics linked on this slide give you a quick introduction to what tier one first core best instruction is and the components of tier two interventions and tier three interventions. Additionally, on the next slide, we wanted to highlight another resource that might speak to where you are in your own journey. And this is a guide for multidisciplinary teams to support an iterative database process for supporting English learner students so that we can fully distinguish language acquisition from disability by analyzing multiple factors. So the process is broken down into data-driven decisions, looking at all existing factors, extrinsic factors, personal, cultural, language, and environment, taking a look at what ELD instruction looks like. Is it comprehensive? Is it inclusive of designated ELD, integrated ELD? What do those tiered supports look like? Are we meeting all of the requirements for an appropriate referral for special education assessment, and keeping in mind all of those legal guardrails that are specifically called out when we're looking at students who have a home language other than English, where we are ruling out dialects and language development stages as disabling conditions. So again, a really great resource to support teams in that. And then on the next slide, we wanted to highlight yet another frequently occurring problem of practice that we see in our work statewide. And this is related to inaccessible core instruction, and inaccessible in quotations, I should have put there, because oftentimes the conversation is around students often lacking meaningful access to core curriculum and comprehensive ELD. This is a resource that we put together that takes into account IDEA requirements and Title III requirements and looks at them so that we can provide and develop an IEP that is inclusive of all student needs, including linguistic needs and disability related needs. So this is a great resource to help teams go through and check what exists there or what information sources we are using to address these particular areas in the IEP. And finally, when we're looking at providing the necessary steps, considerations in really supporting our English language learner students build their proficiency, we developed this resource that has 5 key considerations for supporting English language proficiency in dually identified students. So from looking at what ELP assessment is going to be used, whether it's going to be the OG LPAC as is, the OG LPAC with accommodations, with UDAs, or if the student has a significant cognitive disability, if the ALT LPAC is appropriate. How often are we reviewing eligibility reports, whether it be that initial or that reestablishment of eligibility? How often are we looking at historical scores? Yes, formative data is important. However, we know that we could also be looking at some of these yearly assessments to take a look at what domains are being impacted in that LPAC, and then also looking at ELD implementation, that comprehensive ELD piece, integrated ELD, designated ELD. Are we aware that there's 2 types of ELD that come together into comprehensive ELD, and then finally that development of linguistically appropriate goals and objectives. So again, quick resource to help focus teams around these considerations. And you can find that resource and more at our website, which we've linked on the very next slide. Feel free to spend some time perusing, going through and finding what you may need. And if you do not, we're always happy to connect with you. Send us a quick email and we'll be happy to find it for you or to create it for you. We're a little infographic and resource building crazy over here at Project MuSE, and we'll be happy to get you what you need.
Wow, thank you, Vanessa. I'm going to hand it directly off to Emily, and then in just a few minutes, we're going to have an opportunity for you guys to discuss and ask questions. So Emily, take it away.
Thank you. So many cool resources. Thank you, guys. So as Lori mentioned before, open access is really focused on, again, that high quality instruction for all students that they can engage and participate in inclusive settings. And I think one of the things that makes our project unique is really that we are integrating universal design for learning, assistive technology, and augmentative and alternative communication. And so we provide professional development through coaching and training in those 3 areas. We are, like the other 2 groups, a small and mighty team as well. We have 2 coordinators on the project. We also have 3 content leads, and then we also have our executive leader and our administrative assistant there as well. So we are housed at the Placer County Office of Education, SELPA, and we also have some amazing partners across the state, including Antelope Valley SELPA, North Inland SELPA, Humboldt County Office of Education, and of course, our Placer County Office of Education, and we're funded by California Department of Ed and the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. So again, we focus on providing that professional development and support across the state, and we've really grounded that in our 3-tiered system of support. So we support schools, districts, county office of education, SELPAs all across California. So our universal supports include our website along with virtual asynchronous trainings, and then we have webinars as well. They're all available recorded on our website, and then for more information about upcoming trainings, if you'd like to attend them live, those are also on our website. Our targeted supports are really designed in partnerships with districts and schools, and they're seeking some direct support for us. And so we really do our best to tailor this professional learning and coaching aligned with the district's need, the school's needs, and specifically what time they have available. And so we tailor exactly what they need and what they're looking for. And then the intensive supports are really provided through in-depth technical assistance and specialized services focused on systems development, building that sustainability and that long-term implementation through the continuous improvement model. Our website also houses all of these all kinds of resources, and I'll go through some specific ones in a minute, but it is linked on I know Lori's adding those links, but I will throw it in the chat as well for anyone who wants to check it out as we are going. Our ultimate goal within open access is really to build showcase sites across the state. One of the questions that we hear all the time is, okay, but what does UDL accessibility look like in action? And so our showcase sites are really an attempt to answer that question. And so they highlight accessibility practices in action. We host tours there, and the goal is really for people to see what is UDL assistive technology and augmentative and alternative communication in action. What does that look like at schools? We currently have 3 showcase sites that focus on UDL implementation. They're located in 29 Palms, California, and I did see Eric on the call from Morongo. Sacramento, and then also in Fortuna, which is located up in Humboldt County. We have 1 AAC showcase site with doors open in Hollister, and then 2 more in development. And then we have 3 other UDL showcase sites that are also in development as well. So if you are interested in visiting a showcase site, you can head over to our website and request a visit to a showcase site near you. It's a really fun experience to have. So we really wanted to highlight one specific school district and kind of our process with them, and then some resources that they were really focused on utilizing to help throughout their process. So the Lompoc Unified School District is a school in Santa Barbara County, and they initially came to us really with this desire. I'm sure many have this desire as well, to reduce the number of student study team meeting referrals as well as special education assessment referrals. And so they decided to take a district level approach, which was very exciting. And they were really focused on specifically targeting that tier 1 instruction. So how can we reduce those? By really focusing on that high quality instruction, tier 1. So some strategies they utilized that I thought were really unique and important were they started with an early adopter cohort during the 24-25 school year, and really made sure this was something that they had a lot of buy-in in from some specific teachers across the campus. Once they did that, they established a professional development committee where members were nominated by the teachers union. And so their administrative team at the district level presented their plan for district-wide implementation and their rollout and model. And they really ensured that this committee, of the professional development committee of teachers that really have a lot of leverage within their teacher community, had real buy-in and interest, and they presented them with data and the why, all of that fun stuff. And so that really, really helped increase that buy-in. And then their professional learning model was pretty unique. And I think it's been something that has taken a lot of traction and gone over really well. But that was delivered by instructional leaders at each site. And so Open Access provided that training and coaching and instructional materials to the instructional leaders, and then they provided the professional development to their own staff. And what that really allowed them to do was really plan for the learner variability on their site. So instructional leaders know their staff, they know the things that their teams are really struggling with, or the areas that they're going to connect the most to. And so they could take the materials from us, which were as a force copy slide deck, make any adjustments they wanted to, maybe highlighting something a little bit more, highlighting something a little less, any small adjustments they wanted to make. And it really kind of allowed them to model UDL in how they were presenting materials to their staff as well. So there were a couple of specific tools, or actually I do want to show you this too. These were the survey results that Lompoc received after their second professional development day. They had all of their teachers, really think about what was this professional learning like for you? How was it received? And during the second professional development day, they had 229 teachers respond. 88.6% either agreed or strongly agreed that they're likely to use the learning from today in professional practice. And then 88.2% either agreed or strongly agreed they felt confident to implement at least one piece of the puzzle. And then I was actually on a call just this week with them. They just did their third professional development. And they were very, very excited because they actually got up to 93% agreed or strongly agreed that they were going to be confident to implement one piece of the training. So they were really excited about that. We do have a podcast on our website called UDL Unlocked, and there's our most recent episode is actually interviewing one of the deans. It's like their vice principal, I was gonna say vice president, vice principal, their dean, on kind of how she specifically adjusted materials to support the variability of her staff. And so the link to that episode is in there if you want to hear more specific things about their journey. So I want to share a few resources that have been really helpful for their team. So this is our open access website. All of these resources are located on the UDL resource tab. One of the things that in their district really helped them was thinking about what is your next one small step. And so utilizing this +1 approach of just, UDL can feel really overwhelming. Anything can feel really overwhelming if we're thinking about doing it all at once. But if we pick the one next step, what is the one next piece that we want to do, that can be really powerful. So this +1 approach was something that was really powerful. And even more powerful was the superintendent has been attending all of the professional learning as well. And her message to the leaders was, just have every single staff member try one small thing. And so it really was coming from that district level of we're doing this, but one small thing at a time. And that was really powerful. Another thing that the team has really been focused on is increasing their walkthroughs. And the principals were looking for some way that they could provide really specific feedback in a positive way. And so this has been one tool, this evidence of UDL implementation tool, that just provides some specific things that someone might see if they were in a classroom with UDL implemented in action. And then finally, our UDL lesson planning toolkit. And I would say some teachers are really happy with this +1 approach, just one small thing at a time. And then you always have a few teachers that are like, okay, I'm ready to dive in full force and do more. And those teachers have been really interested in the lesson planning toolkit and taking their current curriculum and really utilizing our lesson planning rubric, which looks at, okay, where are we when it comes to goal setting and activating prior knowledge, these pieces within UDL lessons? Where is our current curriculum and maybe where might we want it to go? And kind of utilizing that as a reflection tool. And I realized there's one more tool I forgot to highlight, and that is also this positive feedback form, and it's really broken down so that principals can think about, maybe we're just looking at engagement. I'm doing walkthroughs and I want to leave a nice little note that says like, hey, you've done a great job. I see that students have voice in here. I see that they are collaborating. Boom, quick little note. And so these are just printable. You can focus on multiple means of engagement, representation, or action and expression. And then some site leaders have really, because maybe their staff is a little further along, there's a one-pager with all three of these. So all of these resources are located on our website. And yeah, those are just some tools that have been really powerful for Lompoc.
Thank you so much, Emily. I'm going to make sure and capture, I feel like I missed a couple along the way, but I've tried to grab all of these resources on this an implementation guide. But without taking any more of our time, we've heard from all of our SSOS partners sharing their strategies, their examples from the field, and now we're going to shift into an unmute, drop in the chat, kind of a roundtable discussion. And this is really a facilitated Q&A with all participants on the call. So this really is about connecting these ideas to your context, to implementation. So we invite you to begin thinking about, if you haven't already done so, what you've heard today and how can you begin to apply this at your own site or district. So these questions on the slide here are just ideas to spark discussion. Feel free to pick one that really fits your context. Unmute and let's start this conversation. And our partners on the call can jump in and help answer with examples, clarifications, connections, and so forth. So I'm going to pause there and allow for some conversation. Thinking about how might this strategy look in your district, or maybe you're just beginning and you have some questions. Want to go back and revisit a strategy or a resource that was shared, please unmute and ask. Thinking about professional learning or coaching, bringing something to your district to build capacity.
I'm going to be very self-serving here and say that I'm just so glad to have connected again with the two of you, because now I have other connections that I want to make with open access and California Includes, because I can see a need for a collaborative session soon. So I'm looking at the two of you, Stephanie and Lori. I'll be reaching out.
I love it. I love it. Another
Love having you.
opportunity to integrate, right?
Yep. And Emily, thank you for all those resources. I was like, I couldn't write fast enough. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't remember they had that. So I
Me
have a
too.
class coming up at Sac State, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're coming into open access and using all your resources for you to use.
Love it. Please do.
For those that are worried that like after this call you're going to lose everything, don't worry. We have here for you. Let me hit enter. Links to all of the resources. We are actively linking them. I will work on the accessibility of how it goes into a second page and you lose some of that because the heading in there. So I'll fix that after the call. But Emily, thank you for linking the things that I missed, the walkthrough tool and the positive notes. But along the way, I was grabbing everything that was being shared. It was a lot of information. So maybe you're in processing mode, kind of just sitting and thinking how might this be adapted for your context. So we will pause and allow for conversation. And again, that's okay if you don't have them right now. We definitely have the opportunity to have you come back and circle back with the guests on the call today. So Emily, you want to take us to the next slide? I just want to bring up the tool here that you're going to have access to. So I just want to thank you all for your insights and your sharing during our meeting today. It's really powerful to hear how each one of you, each project is taking this information, sharing it far and wide throughout the state, and really supporting every learner. So this screenshot actually is the last month's school climate and positive behaviors. Emily, if you click on that, it should go live to the document. Perfect. So this one is the current one. So you can see along the left-hand side, I'm gonna start to build this out with different tabs. So this is the problem of practice for academics and achievement. So links to every resource is there for you to share. Share with team members that maybe couldn't be on the call today. So again, growing living resource, and then you do have access to last month, or actually it was October, that month. So, and then what we'll do is we'll go to our final slide, that commitment to action. So as we close, we'd love for each of, everybody still on the call here with us to drop like one commitment to action in the chat, or feel free to unmute and share with the group. Maybe just something small, but meaningful that you plan to take back to your site or your district based on what you've learned today. It could be a conversation that you want to start with a colleague, a resource that you're going to keep open in your tabs and explore later, a strategy that maybe you want to try, something, a little gem that you'll hopefully take away from today. Connect and build on each other's expertise. Absolutely. We could not do this call without you all together here. Sharing the resources for assessment of EL students as it's been a current topic of conversation. Okay, perfect timing. We're glad you're on the call today, Deborah. Project MuSE resources are going to our staff next week. I love the timeline, Eric. The implementation guide is such a treasure of resources for approaching these common problems of practice. Yes, please share far and wide, Noreen. Thank you so much. All right, well, we will give you all the gift of time. I just want to remind you that our next one is February 26th. Our problem of practice is graduation and post-school pathways. And do I have who is going to be on the call right in front of me? Let me see if I can quickly grab that information. We are going to have high quality IEPs. California includes, and back on the call, California Center for Inclusive College, which I believe is also part of Stephanie's. Yes. So next month, February 26th from 12 to 1, I hope you join us. Please share this opportunity to join with people. I saw a bunch of you share it yesterday, so I'm glad you were doing that. And thank you for being here today. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing these resources with your program specialist team. Fantastic. One shameless plug for following us all on social media. Stay connected. Follow us. I know Project MuSE and California Includes are also on social media, so please follow them as well. But again, thank you everyone for your time today. We hope this was helpful, and we hope to see you next month.